Hall, so we're hoping to have a conversation. I don't think we've set up the possibility for those online to ask questions. I'm not sure. We'll run that down, but at least those in the room, and maybe we can have a phone number or something to where people online can text in their questions. But again, we have a brief setup to kind of tell you some about the policy changes, what we offer from CCF to all of our airmen and guardians. But again, this isn't just a time for you to get the waves of information to pass over you. We hope you also throw a hand up and ask some questions. So that's what we're here to do today. So again, CCAF, just to give you a brief history, back in 1960s time frame, the Air Force was doing what it's been doing since conception, which is knocking it out of the park, training airmen to do what they needed to do to go fight whatever fight they had to fight. At the time, a few states were looking at what the airmen were doing, what the Air Force was doing. They had all these people that were getting out of the military, and then they'd go into the civilian sector, and in some cases, well, they didn't get credit for what they did in the military, so they had to go re-get certifications or licenses or credentials, whatever it may be. While they were doing that, they're getting this education from somebody who has less experience than them, less background in whatever it happened to be, aircraft maintenance, for example. And the state started saying, well, we got these individuals coming out of the military that are more qualified than the programs, the people coming out of our civilian programs. So Utah specifically just went in, did a study, and they said, you know what, we're just going to cut and paste everything the Air Force is doing, and we're going to give them license, we're going to give them credentials, we're going to give them college credit. And of course, you can imagine a group of chiefs at the time were like, wait a minute, how is that possible? How has that not happened for my airmen? Like, how are they getting out and not already having all this credential, all this street cred, if you will? So that's when they started looking into creating what we now call the Community College of the Air Force. So around 1972, so next year will be our 50th anniversary. We've been doing this for 50 years. We started out with the associates was like the main focus, but over time, obviously, we pulled in credentials. We cover the AFCOL program. So just a quick sample. I know we have a small crew here, but who has heard of AFCOL, the Air Force Credentialing Opportunity Online? Okay, that's kind of what I sort of unfortunately expected. So what that is anyone that has over their 7 level can get $4,500 towards a license or a credential or licensure and credentialing towards that, whatever it may be. I think 80% of them have to be, right, the license or credential you're going for actually has to be 80% within your career field, but there's also a few other options. And this is just an example of things that we offer. And essentially what CCF's trying to do, well, I'm getting lost here. Let me get back to my fun history. So in 1972 is when they said, hey, CCF's going to be a thing. And it was actually signed into law by President Ford. Like it says in Title 10 law that there will be a community college of the Air Force. That happened for a couple reasons. One, what I just mentioned, we were already doing this. We're already providing this education to our airmen. Why not let them get credit for it? Two was around the same time, that's also when the military became an all-voluntary force. So the team at the time said, well, how do we get people to volunteer now instead of being voluntold, and how do we get the right people? And what they landed on was creating an environment where people could come get their education. It's like you can come serve your country, but you can also take something with you. So that way when you leave the service, you're not leaving straight to the unemployment line. You have some options. And our goal at CCF is to help you achieve whatever your educational goals are. It's not necessarily trying to push a CCF degree or an associate's on you. It's just saying we have the higher education path that we can help you with. We can help you get your associates. But we also have the license and credentialing and vocational path. We're simply just trying to make sure that you know what's at your fingertips right now as being an airman, someone who raised their hand and said, I want to be part of the 1% that serves the nation, and just protects you and allows you to get what you have available to yourself right now. So that's kind of just a brief history for us. I'm really excited about CCF. I'm excited to tell the story. So if anybody has questions, again, that's what we're here today, is to help answer your questions. But before I drone on any further, I'm going to pass it on to our Dr. Elwood, who is the Director of Student Services at Community College of the Air Force. So he's obviously engaging with your ESOs here and all throughout the world, and is also going to start working with the affiliated schools in the near future as well. So he covers kind of the touch points you have and making sure those are all accredited and you're getting what you deserve out of it. Some of the misconceptions that I've heard over time at CCF is, one, we're not an accredited degree program. Dr. Elwood's going to talk about that in a minute. We are definitely accredited. We're accredited. In fact, we're accredited by the same source that accredits Duke and Alabama and Auburn, all these big name schools. And why that's important is because us, as the people that are having this fight for you, to make sure that you get what you get the credit hours, get the license, get the credentials that you earned through your Air Force training. We want that to be as portable as possible. We want that to go, if you want to go get a bachelor's at such and such university, we want to make sure everything that you did with us transfers over. And we're the ones that have that fight for you, so that you as the airman don't have to leave from this base and go to the next base and then try to figure out, well, okay, there's a school right here, let me see how many credits transfer over, and then you be the one that has to go fight that fight. No, we take care of that for everybody. That's part of our charge, that's part of our mission, again, to help you achieve your educational goals. So I have droned on long enough. I'll pass it over to Dr. Elwood. He's going to give you a brief here, and then tomorrow he's actually going to be the commencement speaker, so we're really excited. Don, I'm sorry for taking up all your time. It's over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to our hosts. Thank you, Chief Reed, for coming with us, Ms. Vaughn. Thank you for continuing to support us. What I want to talk to you about today is what you need to know, what you want to know. I have 233 slides, so we're probably not going to hit them all right? What we're probably going to do is I'm going to try to make this brief as specific to you and what your questions are as I can, okay? But I do have some slides that I do want to cover because has anybody heard there's been a few policy changes over the last 18 months and 2 years? Who's heard that? Yeah, everybody, right? So we've changed a lot of stuff. When you change stuff, it can be confusing. At some point, folks thought we took things away from them or made it more difficult to get a CCAF degree, okay? All we did was change some of our policies to be more SACS compliant. So SACS is our regional accrediting body, which is what the Colonel was talking about. They're the ones who make us a college. And so the Colonel was alluding to the fact that we are an actual college, and not everybody feels that way. But what y'all need to know is what makes a college is accreditation. And so we have to follow military and Air Force guidelines, AFIs and so forth, but we also are separately the same as a civilian college, and we have to follow the same rules as them. So to ensure academic rigor, to make sure your degree means something, we have to comply with their rules. So we made our degree programs more academically rigorous, which means they're worth more, they're respected more, they're accepted more worldwide. But we had to change a few things to make that so. So let's talk about that. So today's brief, we're going to talk about a million things, okay? We're hopefully going to talk about the things that are important to you. But the two biggest sections of this brief are going to be policy changes and a brand new degree you've heard about obliquely, maybe not directly, our very first ever non-occupationally based degree called the MTASL. And I won't even tell you what that stands for until we get to it. Okay? So there it is. Gave it away, right? So we're going to talk about policy changes and the Military Technology and Applied Sciences Management degree. Okay? Our very first ever non-occupationally based degree. Okay? So let's talk about that a little bit. So we talked very briefly about accreditation, what it is, and why it's important, okay? And this is what happened. All right, so picture this. Picture an IG inspection, right? What happens during an IG inspection? All the experts from every section, every department within, let's say, the wing, comes down to your squadron and inspects every single piece of what you do. They inspect your motor pool, your finance, your paperwork, your leadership. And they all decide as a group if you guys are up to snuff or if there are some significant changes that need to be made. Well, when you're a regionally accredited college, the Department of Education says that you have to live up to certain standards or you're in violation. You're in violation of accreditation. So what do? They send down a group of experts, not unlike an IG inspection, but these experts come from our sister colleges, college presidents, department chairs, things like that. They come down and they inspect every single thing about every single college within their region. And we're in the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, SACS, region, so Southeastern United States. So they come down and they have to inspect every college every 10 years. We just had our reaffirmation in 2019, okay? It was going on all the way from 2017 to 2019. But in 2019, in preparation for that, we determined by looking at some of our policies that there were some academically problematic practices that we were doing that needed to be fixed before we went for reaffirmation. Because you know what we didn't want to do? We didn't want to be significantly in violation of our accreditation standards, because you know what would have happened? We would either been sanctioned or we could possibly have failed to continue to be in an actual college, okay? That's what led to some of these policy changes. Now, one thing I will tell you is it was determined, even before we looked into our issues, that perhaps the music and the mass comm degree programs were not in compliance with SAC's policies, with regional accreditation policies. So is there anyone in here who's in the music or mass comm field? And there may or may not be online. So I'm just going to hit this very briefly, what the problem was and why we needed to make the change. So check this out. CCAF was cited for non-compliance from our regional accrediting body. We just call them SACs, but there's a longer name. For not employing sufficient full-time faculty members to ensure the curriculum program integrity for the music and mass comm degree programs. So what does that mean in English, right? Now, if you're in the band, everybody in the band comes into the Air Force typically already with a degree, or if they don't have a degree, they're hired without having to go to tech school, they're typically hired by their experience, their audition, and their education, okay? But CCF has a music degree program, right? So what were we doing? Because every AFSC has a degree program at CCAF, they had a degree program as well, even though, what did I just say? They had no tech school, no upgrade training, nothing like that. So in order to replicate their tech school credit, or what we call INT 3000, we're just, I don't want to say waiving it, we were giving it to them. So we were giving them tech school credit, which, if they were to go to a CCF affiliated school, was credit-bearing college credit for doing what? He's got it right, for doing nothing. So we would just give them that credit towards their college degree. Now, does that sound like an academically appropriate thing to do? It wasn't. We felt it wasn't. Our accrediting body sort of felt the same way, so we felt we needed to stop doing it before we were cited. So what did we do? What was our response? We discontinued the music program because, as our dean would say, you can't give college credit for classes not attended. Even though we know they know the knowledge and that we know they're experts at what they do, you can't give college credit as a college for classes that were not taken, okay? And that's going to come up again later. And there'll be a test later anyway. So, but we're going to talk about something called INT 3000 later for other people who had their tech school waived. Do we have any Guard or Reserve in here? As you may know, in the Guard or Reserve, sometimes people come in as experts already, and so their tech school is waived, okay? Back in the day, which was a Tuesday, by the way, back in the day, we used to still give you tech school credit, even if your tech school was waived by your commander, because we felt the commander should be allowed to make that decision, whether this person is mission ready or not, with or without tech school. But we were giving college credit. But what did our dean say? A college cannot give college credit for classes not attended. So we had to quit doing that for y'all, the Guard and the Reserves, okay? But we'll talk more about that later. Here's the other degree program that was discontinued, was Mass Comm. Does anybody know where Mass Comm goes to tech school? Mass Communications degree program, you know, your public affairs people, not pointing any fingers, right? They go to what we call an ITRO school, or a DOD school, or a combined school taught by another branch of service. Now, the rule to give out collegiate credit from CCF, institutional credit, is you have to attend a CCF-affiliated school, right? So how do you guys get that credit? You guys go to tech school, right? You go to an Air Force tech school. Air Force tech schools are all, almost all, CCF affiliated. In other words, they meet regional accreditation standards because we inspect them, and so does SACS. They have instructor qualifications. In other words, every tech school instructor in the Air Force in a CCF affiliated school can be considered a college professor because they meet regional accreditation standards of being a college professor. But guess who doesn't? People at Army, Navy, Marine Corps schools. And if you're going to an ITRO school, an inter-service school, which mass communications was, if the school's not CCF affiliated and the instructors aren't professor qualified, we can no longer give college credit for that. We can't give them CCF institutional credit as if it had come from us if their institution or their branch campus is not CCF affiliated. So what did we do in response? Boom. We had to put a stop to, we had to end the mass communications degree program. So what did that do? That disenfranchised every single airman who was in music and every single airman who was in mass comm. They now no longer have a path to a CCF degree. Any CCF degree ever. Now, do they need a CCF degree? Is it mandatory to have a CCF degree? Well, rules changed a while back saying you could have either an associate's degree or a CCF degree is required for promotion to senior enlisted ranks, correct? So they don't actually need a CCF degree, but they need an associate's degree. But is it not fair? Isn't it unfair that every single AFSC in the Air Force has a degree program, has a ton of credits they get towards that degree program from the training they do, and has a fairly easy path to a degree program at CCF, except for 2 AFSCs. Kind of unfair, right? So what did we do to fix that? I don't know. MTASM, right? So we'll talk about the MTASM. Okay, so that's 2 major things that happened. Is we went through a reaffirmation process. Oh, and by the way, we were successful. We had, and we were concerned because we had a handful of potential violations that we felt could be violations, even though we were working on them prior to being reassessed. But we were afraid that there's a possibility we could either be put on sanctions or have some problems with our reaffirmation. But guess what happened? We worked so hard, so diligently to shore up these issues. We made so many policy changes, which we're going to talk about in a minute. We were reaffirmed with no sanctions, no changes, no concerns at all for another 10 years. So I'm here to tell you, your CCF degree is not only a fully accredited college degree, just like one from University of Georgia, University of Alabama, any of that, but we're reaffirmed for another 10 years. All right, and with the current leadership we have, I can see CCF being accredited and reaffirmed forever and ever until the sun burns out of the sky, okay? So I want you guys, hopefully that gives you some comfort and some confidence, okay? Because what do the dormitory lawyers say? Have you guys ever heard, and let me try to use their vernacular. Dog, man, I'm not even sure CCF is a real college and I won't get a real college degree. That's just some training you get while you're in the Air Force, and it may or may not apply or be accepted by a civilian college. Well, if we're a fully accredited college with the same accreditation as our sister schools, they have to accept our credit. Regional to regional, which we don't use that term anymore, by the way, regional accreditation. They will accept our credit, okay? So let's talk about some of the things we changed to keep our accreditation. And I'll go through these fairly quickly because some of these changes are very significant to all of you, and some of them are just kind of nice to know. Music and mass comm went away for those reasons that you see in the second block, all right? So, which is kind of uncool, but we got something for them, the MTASM degree. What also happened? We discontinued proficiency credit. Now, what is proficiency credit? Didn't I say some folks go to a non-CCF affiliated tech school like at another branch of service? But isn't it true that some people also go to EPME at another branch of service? Isn't it sometimes follow-on advanced training go to another branch of service? That's what we used to call P credit. In other words, proficiency credit. When you transferred in credit from another branch of service, we used to accept it. We even put it towards our technical area, our tech core area. At one point, we even considered it institutional credit as if it was the same as credit coming from CCAF. Now that's no longer the case, okay? You can still transfer in credit from a dual service school or an other service school, but it has to have some type of accreditation or evaluation for us to accept. It would be on that service's joint service transcript, or would need to have an ACE evaluation, or we would need to evaluate it separately for it to be worth any credit at all. But guess what it can't have? It can't have institutional credit, okay? So I'm going to cover institutional credit real quick. So check this out. Regional accreditation or full accreditation rules say if you're going to get a college degree from any college, any accredited college, the college you get the degree from will require you to take 25% of your credits from that college, or they won't issue you a diploma or degree. And guess why that is? Hey, what if you went for a bachelor's degree at Harvard? Because Harvard is awesome, and you just want a degree from Harvard, but you took 117 semester hours at some really cheap, really local, inexpensive, easy to get through, fly-by-night college. And then you transferred all that credit into Harvard, you took one class with them, and you think you're going to get a bachelor's degree from Harvard because you want their name on it. You think Harvard would do that? They wouldn't do it, and neither will CCF. But you know why? Well, for several reasons. But the main reason is you have to get 25% of your degree credit from the college you're going to graduate from. So, can anybody tell me, pop quiz, how many semester hours of college credit is a complete CCF degree? Anybody know? Somebody in the back? Go ahead. 64 semester hours. So what is 25% of 64? Is currently 16 semester hours. So what our accrediting body said is 25% or 16 semester hours of degree credit towards our degree must come from CCAF. Can't come from, what do you call, credits that are transferred in, to include credits that come from other services, like an Army school or something like that. So they're not institutional credit. And that's going to be important to you as we go into a couple of our other policy slides. And we'll get back to that one in a minute when we talk about something called double counting, when we talk about institutional residency through your tech core, those type of things. But what I want to talk about now is a couple of other things. Reserve and guard people, raise your hand again. Okay, so when you skipped tech school, for those who had their tech school waived, we gave them something called INT 3000, okay? And what that was we'd give them college credit for their tech school even if they didn't go to tech school because it was waived. Like I was saying earlier, we had to discontinue that. And you guys know why, because I already told you. We can't continue to, and we used to give you college credit for this, but we can't continue to give college credit for courses not completed, okay? So we discontinued that. So let's just jump into the next slide. All right, how many people here or online remember when you got INT 5000? Raise your hand if you used to get INT 5000. So can anyone tell me what INT 5000 is? It's your 5-level upgrade training, right? So why did we call it INT 5000? What does the INT mean? It means internship credit. So when you're doing upgrade training, what are you kind of doing? You're interning under your supervisor, right? And you're doing CDCs, right? But check this out. We found out by looking at our sister colleges and by talking to our accrediting body that we didn't have a true internship system. Because what happens in an internship system? You take some classes, and then you intern under a qualified faculty doing your job, learning your job, proving you can do your job, or your collegiate major, right? When you're doing your upgrade training, who you're interning under? Your supervisor. How many supervisors are part of CCAF-affiliated organizations? How many supervisors have a CCAF degree or have gone through CCAF institutional faculty training where they're trained to a SACS accreditation level to train you? Some, not all. So if you're interning under someone who's not a professor, we couldn't give you internship credit. And here's the other problem. Were there some AFSCs that really weren't doing upgrade training? Were there some AFSCs that had no CDCs at all? Were there some AFSCs that even their time in training, their minimum time in training to get their upgrade approved was waived? So we determined there was, in some cases, there was very little or no training going on. In other cases, there was training going on by non-qualified faculty, okay? So what do we do? And some of you guys who've been around a while remember, we said, as of today, and this was about a year and a half ago, we are shutting off INT 5000. There's no longer a such thing as INT 5000. Well, don't you have to get 24 semester hours in the technical area to graduate? And didn't INT 5000, in other words, your upgrade training, didn't that give you 8 free semester hours? Not free. You still had to do upgrade training, but you were going to do that anyways, weren't you? So when we said this is an academically non-viable internship that we can no longer use, and we told the field they went berserk. Why do you think they went berserk? Anybody? We're snatching 8 semester hours away from you, and you now don't have a path to graduation, right? So what did we have to do in return? Well, we had a really smart dean and a captain of institutional effectiveness. They did some research with our regional accrediting body and with our sister colleges, and they determined that we are allowed to award college credit for what they call educational experiences occurring outside of the classroom environment. If we were to evaluate training, determine how much it should be worth, we're allowed to give credit. So what did we do? We gave you guys back your INT 5000, but what we changed the name to was UGT 5000, Upgrade Training 5000, because we determined there was training going on, and then we did research to determine how much it should be worth. And you know what the outcome was? It was worth 8 semester hours for INT 5000. Now it's worth 9 semester hours. Because what did we determine? There was not only training going on that should be worth college credit, there was a ton of training going on. So what I want you guys to know is UGT 5000 is 9 semester hours. UGT 7000 is 6 semester hours. So both of them went up some. So that was temporarily bad news. We fixed it. It's now good news for the airmen. It makes it easier to get a CCF degree. All right. Now, you know what else happened? Look at that second bullet. SDI. Does anyone remember SDI 5000? SDI stands for Special Duty Internship. So anyone who was in a special duty position or an RI, right, a reporting identifier, and you were serving in a special duty, like let's say a first sergeant, we determined 2 things. One, it's not an actual, there's no internship going on, not a real normal internship under a credentialed faculty member. But 2, you know what else we found out? In most cases, there was 0 internship, 0 training, no CDCs, and not even, in the case of the first sergeant, a qualified mentor that could even mentor that person in their field. Because who knows more about first sergeanting than a first sergeant? A first sergeant's a 1 deep position, so they have no supervisor. There was no training going on, so you know what we did? SDI 5000, 7000 is now gone. We discontinued it. We changed it to something called SQT. SQT 5,000 or 7,000. So if and only if that career field, or should I say that special duty field, can prove that there's training going on, turn in an AFJQS to us, and show and document what training was going on, we can then and only then determine how much it's worth and issue credit. To this date, does anyone know which SDI or RI actually has a viable SQT that gets collegiate credit? Can anybody tell me? The only SDI out there currently is recruiters. Because recruiters have a detailed documented training path, they get what used to be INT 5,000, 7,000. Now we call it SQT 5,000, 7,000. Guess what the first sergeants have? Nothing. Guess what all the other SDIs and RIs have? They haven't developed a training package yet, so they still don't get this collegiate credit. So currently, until that is fixed, and it can be fixed very easily, work between those RIs and CCF, but until then, those SDIs don't have a viable path to a CCF degree, a CCF occupational degree that's congruent with their RI or SDI. So what do we do for them? MTASM, okay? They can get the MTASM because we don't want them to not get any degree, right? That would be unfair. Okay, the bottom bullet says PE is going away. Hey, did you know you get most people know, you get 4 semester hours of phys ed credit during BMT, right? We determined that because none of our sister colleges, our sister civilian colleges, were given PE credit anymore, in fact, that's gone away back in the 90s, we should get rid of it. But, so now airmen are saying, wait a minute, I'm losing 4 more credits. Holy cow, CCF, you guys are bugging me. You're taking credit away left and right. Well, we also took the requirements away. So starting with the 2022 catalog, our CCF degree will go from 64 semester hours down to 60. You won't get a phys ed requirement, or should I say you won't get phys ed credit, but there's also no phys ed requirement. So 60 semester hours is now our new degree program. Oh, holy cow. Here's another one that's really important. Okay. Remember I talked to you guys about institutional credit? And what is institutional credit? That's credit that you must get at the college you want to graduate from. Didn't I say 25% of your credit must come from that school? So what is that for CCF? 16 semester hours? But you know what else we found during our reaffirmation process? We found that almost every college in our zone, sister colleges in our regional area, they require institutional credit in their degree major. So what is you guys' degree major? The technical area of your degree. And isn't part of the technical area of your degree called Tech Core, and some of it's called Tech Elect? We don't like the word elect, because almost anything can fit in there. So Tech Core is what we defined as the your degree major. And most colleges have a minimum that you should be trained on your degree major from the college you're going to graduate from. So our new rule is you guys have to have, or should I say airmen have to have, a minimum of 9 semester hours in technical core from an institutional source. What's an institutional source? A CCF affiliated school. And that includes what? The Air Force Culture and Language Center as well, because they belong to Air University, which we also belong to. Okay, so 9 semesters. So we didn't change that you need 24 semester hours in the technical area to graduate. We just said you still need 24 hours, but at least 9 of those hours must be in Tech Core and must be institutional credit. Okay, in other words, come from a CCF affiliated source. Okay? And here's the last 2 I want to talk about. I'll talk about these 2 real quick. We stopped double counting. You know what double counting is? Check this out. we were taking people who graduated with a CCF degree and went on to, let's say, a new AFSC and wanted to get a second CCF degree. We were taking and repackaging 40 semester hours of a 64 semester hour degree, and we were just saying, in the vernacular of the airmen, dog man, you just got to get a few more credits and we'll give you another degree. So literally what was often happening was an airman who reclassified and went through tech school, the day they graduate from tech school, boom, we hand them a second degree. Now, how much effort or how much academic coursework do you think that student did? And do you think a normal college would issue that type of credit? A typical civilian college would not. And we've been told by our accreditors we should not. So we stopped doing that. So this is what will no longer count. When you go for a second CCF degree, you can't reuse any of your technical. You can't reuse any of your EPME. You can't reuse any of your, what do you call? Program electives. What can you reuse? For your second CCF degree, you can reuse the general ed you used on your first one. But for your third CCF degree, fourth, fifth, sixth, you can't even reuse gen ed, okay? So that's a new rule we made up. That's a new policy we instituted. And the last policy change is Air Force Culture and Language Center. Remember, they work for AU, so they are CCF affiliated, so we're always going to be able to accept their credit. But back in the day, which remember was a Tuesday, it used to be worth social science credit. Now, because of public law, and not everybody knows this, public law states that general ed classes cannot come from military sources. And that's why, and I know you were going to ask this question because I got ESPN, that's why your ALS can't give you oral comm or written comm, okay? And also, Air Force Culture and Language Center can no longer give you a social science credit, but it is institutional credit. We're going to count it for program electives. Any questions about that? Okay. So, we just gave you guys a bunch of policy changes, right? And for some people, it made getting a CCF degree a little bit more difficult, right? In fact, there's about 1,700 airmen who we disenfranchised, and they no longer have a viable path to an occupationally based CCF degree. So what did we do for them? We came up with a new degree. Drum roll, please. The MTASM, okay? The MTASM degree, like I said, is our first non-occupationally based CCF degree. What do I mean by non-occupationally based? Doesn't matter what your AFSC is, okay? In fact, so some people kind of criticize that. They said, wait a minute, so you give me a degree in nothing? Was it general studies, liberal arts? No, it's better. It's a lot better. You ready for this? The MTASM is the quintessential Air Force specific degree. In other words, this degree is literally anchored in the profession of arms. So if you're a professional airman, a professional leader and manager, and an expert at military science, boom, this degree codifies you as such expert. So we call it the MTASM, and we didn't just make up this name. This is an actual degree title that other colleges use. Military Technology and Applied Sciences Management. So and I don't want to eat up all your time, so let's blow through this one quickly, and I want to answer any questions you have at the end. The MTASM, what's the degree major? The degree major is, if you look to your top left, 39 semester hours in those two buckets, two separate buckets, okay? So if you look at the bucket on your left, we're talking about applied military and management science. And on the other side is applied military operations and technology, okay? So you have to fill up both of those buckets for a total of 39 semester hours, okay? But we don't want you to just be an expert in one area. Our rule is you must have at least 9 semester hours in both buckets. So one bucket, if you're really good in this area, military management, you can get 30 semester hours, but you got to have at least 9 semester hours in military operations or technology, okay? What makes that up? We're going to talk about what makes up both of these buckets in a minute. But let's talk about the rest of the degree. You still got to have electives, but we're loosening up the definition of electives. Doesn't program electives in our old CCAF degree have a very narrow definition? The definition of professional electives is much more broad when it comes to the electives area of the MTASM degree. You can get 6 semester hours in any area that has anything to do, even obliquely, with your AFSC, the Air Force, management, or even an area that you choose, okay? But let's go on and let's talk about Gen Ed. So I want you guys to write this down because this is important. This is going to affect not only the MTASM, but every CCF degree from now on forever and ever. Check this out. There's 5 general ed areas, right? Hadn't there always been 5 general ed areas? So I want you to look on the screen. Up from 1972 all the way to 2017, this has been the 5. Math, social science, humanities, written comm, and oral comm. Those have always been the 5. But some airmen in this room will say, wait a minute, if I don't want to take a speech class, I can take 2 written comm instead, right? That was the rule, and I won't tell you why it was the rule, but that was the rule between only 2017 and 2021. From now on, starting with the MTASM degree, but then starting with the 2022 CCF catalog, speech is back. Speech is back for every airman. Speech is back for every AFSC. Speech is back for every CCF degree. So these are your 5 general ed. Burn them into your brain. Speech, English, humanities, social science, and math, forever and ever, okay? And that's the rule for the MTASM as well. Okay. We already have the MTASM degree program written out, and it's already ready for our 2022 catalog. All right? So you can go and look and see the actual degree program and what classes are required. But what I want you to know is, why did we say we created the MTASM? Because there was a couple of AFSCs and a whole lot of RIs and SDIs that could no longer get an occupationally based degree, right? We disenfranchised them, right? So we came up with this degree for those AFSCs that no longer had an occupationally based CCF degree, and for those SDIs that didn't qualify for SDI 5000 or didn't have any upgrade training. These and only these AFSCs, let me foot stomp that. These and only these AFSCs qualify for the MTASM program. Of course, music and mass comm, right? But guess who else? Didn't I say that you have to have at least 9 semester hours of institutional credit in the tech core area of your degree? Well, do some AFSCs not have 9 semester hours? If your tech school is really short, you might only get 6 semester hours of institutional credit from tech school. So some of those AFSCs are up there, like EOD, right? And a few others. So if you're unable to get enough institutional tech core credit, you can go into the MTASM. This is an all-encompassing list. These AFSCs, and only these AFSCs, qualify for the MTASM degree. Okay, I think I've spoke long enough. I have another 127 slides, but I'm going to pause it right here and ask what questions you guys have, because I threw out a whole bunch of knowledge bombs at you. You guys probably feel like you're drinking from a fire hose. There's been a million policy changes and a brand new huge CCF degree. You guys probably now have questions. So the biggest part of this town hall I want to be is you guys asking some very specific questions that you need answered. What questions do we have at this time? Oh, I got a question. Hey, what if I'm part of an AFSC that has not been identified to qualify for the MTASM program? I'm glad you asked. The list I showed is an exhaustive list of all degrees and SDIs that can get an MTASM. However, by the way, do we still have anyone in here from the Garden Reserve? What happens if your tech school was waived? We can't give you college credit for your tech school, right? So you might have a difficult time earning an occupationally based degree in your AFSC, right? What can we do? By exception of policy, we can enroll you into the MTASM program. So good question, dynamite. You got away with words. What other questions do we have about any policy change, any new CCAF changes or issues, or the MTASM? Yes? So what she asked was, if somebody was EOD and they don't qualify for an occupationally based CCF degree, and then they retired from the Air Force, can they come back and get an MTASM degree? Good question. The answer is no, and the reason is because the CCF rule, in fact, it's not even a CCF rule. It was a law that was signed by President Gerald Ford that created CCF that said only people in the Air Force can get a CCF degree. So once you're separated, you're no longer qualified, unless you're a wounded warrior. Good question, though.
But as you mentioned, if you're a wounded warrior, that's the one thing that your gloves are off and help you for the rest of your life. It might be the case with me.
Well, I'm glad the Commandant brought that up. The Commandant and the President of the college. If you're a wounded warrior, and we've even loosened wounded warrior rules recently to make it available to more wounded warriors. You have up to 10 years after you get out of the Air Force to continue working on your CCF degree, assuming you have a W-9 RI identifier that says you're a wounded warrior. And I can show individual airmen how to get one or how you do that or how you qualify. But then, yes, you have up to 10 years. But you can only get a degree in the program that you were in prior to separation. What other questions do we have?
I want to add one thing to that. I don't know if I can grab the mic.
Hold on while the commander gets a microphone.
Yeah, so with that question, as far as if someone just retired and MTASM isn't, it hasn't hit the streets yet, I don't know if Dr. Elwood mentioned why MTASM isn't around, or did you talk about?
We mentioned why the MTASM was created, yes.
Okay, so he mentioned why it's created. So MTASM is a thing. There's a long reason. He just went behind that. Why hasn't it hit the streets yet? Well, there is everything that is new with the new technical world we live in. The system that we currently have all our degrees on, apparently if we added MTASM or changed things in such a way, it would now make that system non-viable. So Big Air University said, we're creating a whole new system electronically to now where you can do not just MTASM, but all of our tech schools, all of our, not just our tech schools, but Air Force tech schools, Air Force education, period, MIL PDS, how information is flowing for Big Air Force. They're changing that whole system, and our MTASM is attached to that. So once that system's ready, we are actually the first at the gate that they want to send out to take care of all the airmen based on all the policy changes we just mentioned. It was supposed to be launched this month, but with all things that roll out, there's never any hitch. They always go out perfectly the first time. Well, this is one of those rare occasions where it didn't happen perfectly. But I digress. What I wanted to bring up that's kind of a piece to your question is, yes, there are individuals that might not be able to receive this because, well, they punched out already and we haven't launched the program. What my team is doing is doing a legal review and see what can we actually get away with as far as had they completed everything and we weren't able to get them the degree because the system wasn't ready yet. We're trying to make sure if there is a possibility, I can't tell you right now because I don't know the answer, but legally they can't keep working on the degree unless they're a wounded warrior. But however, they might have already achieved everything and we just didn't have the system ready. So we're trying to find ways to take care of those airmen that may have been affected. But that's the best I can give you right now. Again, no promises because it's out of my control. Back to the legal law, you can't provide this. Because at that point, once you're out of the service, you're now civilian. And if I start trying to take care of you, I have civilian institutions that are like, hey, it's not legal for the government to compete with me when it comes to dealing with students. So that's kind of why that rub exists. So my paralegal chief might have a point to say. Let me give it to her.
Thank you, boss. My quick and easy point was to thank you for that question, because I think what we all heard was it surely would be in our interest to take care of these educational opportunities while we are still in service, because we know that many of the benefits that exist while we serve, they go away when we separate or retire. So for all who are online in this room, please go out and share the news that for these, and many of them, we know how expensive things can be on the other side of the uniform. All of the educational opportunities Dr. Elwood mentioned, as well as credentialing, as well as Air Force Cool, those programs, it's money on the table, and if we don't take advantage of those educational opportunities, we're leaving money on the table, but you've worked hard for it. And CCF provides a clear path to those educational goals, no matter what they are, that will save you money. You know, we're talking about tuition assistance perhaps being reduced going forward. We know there's budgetary competition within our Department of the Air Force for other things, so we might as well take care of ourselves. We're taking care of the mission. We're working hard. We're taking care of families. We're doing all these things. So if through CCF you can meet your education goals, please allow us to help you do that. Thank you. That's all I had, boss.
So it sounds like we had some awesome questions. I'll pause just for a few more questions, then we'll go ahead and wrap up. But please, if you have a question, let me know. What questions do we have? Okay, no other questions heard. Yo, here's a question back here. Go ahead, say it loud, say it proud.
Well, I'm Kimberly Clemens. I work at the Education Center here, and I just wanted to bring up and ask, because I know what they are, but what are the certifications that are available through the Community College of the Air Force? What type of options might be out there for airmen for that? Or has it all moved to Air Force Cool? Because we get some of those questions.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that, because not everybody in the Air Force wants to get a CCF degree or an academic degree at all. In some cases, that's why folks join the Air Force, to avoid college, correct? But we want to be all things to all people, so we have several certifications. Now, there's only 3 certifications issued by CCAF, and that's your CIC, which is your professional instructor degree, which could help you get licensed as a civilian teacher in public schools. We have an ISD certificate, which is for those curriculum developers. And then we also have a, of course, your airframe and power plant certificate that is FAA approved for people to go and work in the civilian sector with an A&P or to stay in the Air Force. But I think what you're also referring to is something that we don't call certificates, that we call credentials, is we have Air Force Cool. Air Force credentialing online, okay? And we have dozens and dozens of certifications. Now, the difference between a certification and a certificate is a credit-bearing, semester-hour-bearing document, academic document, whereas a certification is usually the result of taking a test. Our Air Force Cool program has dozens and dozens of professional, industry-recognized certifications that you can apply for, and it has separate funding from Air Force tuition assistance. We have so many of those, it's unbelievable. You can get to the AFCOOL, Air Force Cool program website through AFEC, whether or not you can get to it, whether you have a CAC on you, or you can even get to it from home by going through the AFEC site, clicking on the Air Force Cool link on your Air Force virtual education site. So I'm glad you asked that question. Yes? We have another question in the back. So the back of the bus, all the cool kids are asking the questions now. Go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Elwood. Rachel Day from the Education Center as well. I have a question regarding MTASM and how it might be able to set someone up to do an AU-ABC bachelor's degree.
Okay.
Is there an avenue for that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So as you know, the Air University, AU-ABC is Air University Associate to Baccalaureate Program. It is our partnership with civilian colleges that try to link a CCF degree with a civilian college degree at our partner colleges, so you can step out of your associate programs directly into a bachelor's degree program and get just a ton of credit, okay? So it's like a 2+2 program. 2 years of college through CCF, plus another 2 years of college at our partner schools. The MTASM can help with that because, as you know, the MTASM is what is an actual nomenclature for a civilian college degree. So there are many civilian colleges out there who have a similar program to the MTASM where you can just step out of the Air Force with your completed CCF degree, or even an occupationally based CCF degree, and go into a bachelor's degree program needing no more than 2 years or 60 semester hours to complete that bachelor's program. So that's an excellent question. Did that answer your question? Okay.
This is Colonel Pond again. I'll add to the AUABC that he just mentioned. So that specifically is based on a group of schools that we have a relationship with at CCAF, that we've forged this relationship for the airmen so that you don't have to then go to a university that you're trying to get a bachelor's in and then having that what I mentioned earlier, haggling with them on what credits you can actually transfer in. We have a whole list around 93 different colleges that we've already done that haggling for you. So we've gone to all of them and said, here's all the different degree programs we have, and we have a tiered system to where, tier 1 down to tier 3 of, this one takes everything lock, stock, and barrel, and they not only do they take them, but they actually go towards a degree. And I mean, I guess a lot of colleges will what you'll find is a lot of colleges will take all of your credit hours. What they do with those hours is what matters and is what we're fighting for. They may take those hours and say, great, we'll take all 60 of these hours, now that's all your electives, now go take all these other courses all over again. And you're like, I just took those essentially with the Air Force, like why do I have to do this again? Well, that's what you get in a lot of cases because someone's not there to fight for you. Whereas we go in and say, well, we want all these to go in, and we actually want these to go directly into what's required for this given degree program. So those AUABC schools, those are the ones you go to the CCF web page. You can just Google CCF or like the first link. It's the only airforce.mil type link. You can click on AUABC and you can see. In fact, you can enter your AFSC, and I believe that'll tell you, okay, here's for your AFSC, here's all the different schools that we've already lined up. So then you can go from that list and say, oh, I really like this school. And we're growing that list month by month, just basically as we find schools that haven't been a part of it or through our organizational relationships. Hey, have you heard about this, what we offer? And most of the time, civilian schools say, I want to be a part of that. How can I do this? And then it's just a formal process because it's the government. But I just wanted to highlight that just a little bit more. What happens, what we find is, if the airman is haggling by themselves, I don't want to say they get taken advantage of, but sometimes the school just doesn't work that hard to get the most out of it because the school's also thinking about their bottom dollar and what classes they want you to take. And they may have an accreditation issue in their mind where they think it doesn't count, but that's usually not all the schools that are already through SACs, that we already have this, like I said, Alabama, Auburn, Duke, big schools. So.
And here's why that's so easy to do. As the Colonel mentioned, you can search by AFSC. And we have these wonderful partner schools that are very generous in accepting and applying credit. But more importantly, when you search by AFSC, you're going to find specific degrees that pertain to your AFSC. And you may have an AFSC that you perceive not very academic-ish, to use a technical term. In other words, a AFSC or a degree that you think doesn't apply to academia or doesn't easily fit into an academic type bachelor's program. But these partner colleges specifically have degrees in your AFSC, your AFSC, your AFSC, so they can plug it in where they can take the most advantage of your Air Force credit towards your major, and like the Colonel was saying, not just towards electives. So you'll be that much closer to finishing even a bachelor's degree. Because not that they're going to give you more than 60 semester hours, but they're going to put them into your degree program. So now it may be easier for you to work on your electives or the rest of your general ed. Does that answer your question? Thank you. What other questions do we have?
I mean, honestly, we're here for y'all right now. So, I mean, even if it's down to what I'm interested in all of your hiccups, if you will, like, hey, I haven't finished my CCF or I haven't finished my, I don't say bachelor's, like you don't need to be on that path. I don't care. I want you to get out of life what you want to get out of life. I want to help you. But I'm interested in where you're at, what your path is, and if I can help you with any of those hang-ups, Like maybe it's just time, obviously, because we're all working all day, and then if you want to go to education at night. But I'm very interested in helping you because then that information, obviously, you're all leaders, right? So then you turn around and you'll help fellow airmen. So even if you don't have a question right now, we're going to stay around for just a little bit. I'm definitely interested in you coming down and telling us what path you're on. Cool.
To wrap up the online portion, the streaming portion, I'd just like to make sure that, that I thank the education professionals from Joint Base Bowling, Joint Base Andrews, Pentagon Education Center. Of course, our Chief of Voluntary Education came out to support us as well. And Chief Robertson in the back for setting so much of this stuff up. Thank you so much. So we're gonna stop the official portion of this town hall. If you've got somewhere you need to be, excellent. If not, we're going to stand around and answer any questions you want. You can come up here if you're shy, if you're camera shy, what have you. If you don't want to ask a question in public, just say, hey, here's my situation, here's my problem, here's what I need help with. So at this point, we're available for you. Thank you. Those policy things were really in detail.
Oh, yeah, yeah.